The morning started like any other morning for the Galactic Council. Ambassador Zethkari of the Hegemony sat in his floating chair, reading reports on his datapad. His blue skin gleamed under the soft lights of the council chamber. He breathed slowly through his crystal breathing device, making soft clicking sounds that meant he was relaxed. The chamber was huge and white, with curved walls that reached high into the ceiling. Hundreds of seats floated in perfect rows, each one designed for different alien species. Some seats had extra arms for creatures with 4 hands. Others had special air tubes for beings who breathed different gases. The whole place smelled clean and sterile, like a hospital. Zethkari looked at his schedule. Today they would talk about boring things. The Vorthan mining colonies were fighting again about who could dig where. Some shipping companies wanted to use new routes through dangerous space. There was also the yearly review of the restricted zone around the Sol system. The Sol system had been off limits for 200 years. Long ago, the Council had sent scout ships to check out the third planet from the Sun. They found a species called humans living there. The scouts watched the humans for a while and did not like what they saw. The humans fought wars all the time. They destroyed their own environment. They had nuclear weapons but still acted like wild animals. The Council decided the humans were too dangerous to contact. They put a force field around the entire Sol system. No ships could get in or out. The humans were trapped on their little blue world, probably still throwing rocks at each other. Admiral Cassandra sat 3 rows behind Zethkari. She was tall and thin, with purple skin and 4 arms. Her military uniform was perfectly clean and pressed. She commanded the peacekeeping fleet, which kept order in the galaxy. She sipped her morning nutrition drink and smiled. Her reports showed everything was calm. No wars, no invasions, no problems anywhere. The humans were still safely locked away on Earth. The monitoring stations around their system showed no sign of advanced technology. The humans had barely managed to reach their own moon with primitive rockets. They certainly could not break through the force field that surrounded their system. Lieutenant Commander Vorthak was supposed to give the morning security briefing. He was always on time, always prepared, always calm. His species looked like giant insects with 6 legs and 2 sets of arms. His uniform was always perfect, his reports always complete. But today, Vorthak was late. The council members started to whisper among themselves. Vorthak had never been late before. Some wondered if he was sick. Others thought maybe there was a problem with the transportation tubes that carried people around the station. Then the main doors burst open with a loud bang. Vorthak rushed in, his 6 legs scrambling to keep up with his panic. His uniform was wrinkled and stained. His 4 eyes were wide with fear. He carried a datapad that sparked and smoked like it had been damaged. The entire chamber fell silent. The only sound was the gentle hum of the air recycling system and Vorthak's heavy breathing. "Council members," Vorthak gasped, trying to catch his breath. "We have a big problem. The humans are not on Earth anymore." The silence stretched on for several seconds. Then everyone started talking at once. Voices rose in different languages, creating a noise like a broken radio. Some council members stood up in their floating chairs. Others started tapping frantically on their datapads. Ambassador Zethkari felt his breathing device wheeze as he tried to process what he had just heard. "What do you mean they are not on Earth?" he asked. Admiral Cassandra stood up, her 4 arms crossed. "That is impossible," she said in a firm voice. "Our monitoring stations show no signs of faster-than-light travel. The humans can barely fly to their moon. They definitely cannot break through our force field." "That is the problem," Vorthak said, his voice shaking. "They did not break through the force field. They went around it or through it. Or maybe they punched a hole in it. We are not sure exactly what they did." He activated his damaged datapad, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a map of local space, with stars and planets marked in different colors. The Sol system was marked with a red circle, showing the quarantine zone. "At 0600 hours this morning," Vorthak continued, "our long-range sensors detected a massive disturbance in spacetime. It was unlike anything we have ever seen before. The disturbance appeared to originate from inside the Sol system, but it extended far beyond the quarantine zone. The holographic display changed to show a series of wavy lines extending from Earth's solar system. The lines looked violent and chaotic, like cracks in broken glass. The humans appeared to have developed some kind of faster-than-light technology, Vorthak said. But it is not like our technology. Our ships create smooth bubbles in space-time. This human technology seems to rip holes in the fabric of space itself. Admiral Cassandra studied the display with growing alarm. How many ships? We detected at least one large vessel, Vorthak replied. Maybe more. The disturbance was so violent that it interfered with our sensors. We lost contact with monitoring station Alpha 7 completely. Lost contact? Zethkari's breathing device made a loud wheezing sound. What do you mean lost contact? The monitoring station is gone, Vorthak said quietly. It was there one moment, and then it was not. We think the humans may have destroyed it. This caused another outburst of voices from the council members. Some demanded immediate military action. Others wanted to evacuate the nearby star systems. A few suggested they should try to communicate with the humans. Admiral Cassandra raised one of her 4 arms for silence. Where are the humans now? Vorthak manipulated his datapad, and the holographic display changed again. According to our best estimates, they are heading directly for the council station. At their current speed, they will arrive in approximately 6 hours. 6 hours? Admiral Cassandra felt her heart skip a beat. Her species had 2 hearts, and both of them were racing now. Are you telling me that a species we classified as primitive has developed faster than light travel and is heading straight for us? That is correct, Vorthak nodded. And Admiral, there is something else. We have been trying to contact them on all frequencies. They have been broadcasting messages back to us. What kind of messages? Zethkari asked. Vorthak looked uncomfortable. They say they want to talk. They keep using phrases like howdy and we come in peace and let's be friends. They also sent us something they call a party invitation. A party invitation? Admiral Cassandra repeated. Yes, they want to have what they call a barbecue and get to know each other. They also sent detailed instructions for something called making s'mores and a recipe for the best darn potato salad in the galaxy. The council chamber erupted in confused chatter. No one had ever heard of a first contact scenario that involved potato salad. Admiral, Zethkari said, what do we do? Admiral Cassandra stood silent for a moment, thinking. The humans had been quarantined because they were violent and unpredictable. Now, they had somehow developed advanced technology and were heading straight for the most important political center in the galaxy. But instead of threats or demands, they were sending party invitations and potato salad recipes. We prepare for anything, she said finally. Alert all ships in the area. Raise the station's defensive shields. And someone find out what a s'more is. As the council members scattered to carry out their orders, Admiral Cassandra stared at the holographic display showing the approaching human vessel. She had a feeling that life in the galaxy was about to become much more interesting and possibly much more dangerous. Captain Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty and looked out at the stars. The view was amazing, but Jake had seen it so many times now that he barely noticed. He was more interested in the cup of coffee in his hands and the reports. On his desk, the Liberty was not like the sleek alien ships they had seen in the intercepted broadcasts. It was big and blocky, built from pieces of old aircraft carriers, space stations, and whatever else the engineers could find. The hull was painted navy blue with white stars, and someone had spray-painted Earth's finest. On the side in large letters, Jake was a big man with graying hair and a thick beard. He had been in the Navy for 25 years before joining the Space Force. His uniform was clean but not fancy. He preferred practical clothes that could get dirty. His boots were old and comfortable, and he always carried a lucky coin in his pocket. Lieutenant Rodriguez, any word from the aliens yet? Jake called to his communications officer. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez looked up from her control panel. She was a small woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her desk was covered with empty coffee cups and printed reports. Still nothing, Captain. I've been broadcasting on every frequency we know for 6 hours now. Either they're ignoring us or they don't know how to talk to us. Amy had been trying to contact the aliens since they left Earth's solar system. She sent messages in mathematics, music, and even pictures. The aliens had not responded to any of them. But the Liberty's sensors showed that alien ships were definitely moving toward them. Maybe they're scared? Suggested navigator Lisa Park from her station. Lisa was young and smart, fresh out of the Space Academy. She wore glasses and always had a tablet computer in her hands. Our ship probably looks pretty strange to them. Strange is putting it nicely, laughed Chief Engineer Pete Morrison as he climbed up from the engine room. Pete was covered in grease and oil, as usual. His uniform was more patches than original fabric. He carried a toolbox in one hand and a wrench in the other. Pete had built the Liberty's engine system from scratch. The quantum tunnel drive was his masterpiece, created from spare parts, military surplus, and what he called good old American know-how. It worked by punching holes through space instead of bending it like the aliens did. It was louder, messier, and more dangerous than alien technology. It was also faster. "How's the engine holding up, Pete?" Jake asked, like a dream captain. "The quantum tunnel drive is running smooth as butter. I still can't believe we actually built this thing." Pete grinned and wiped his hands on his overalls. "The aliens are going to have a heart attack when they see how we travel." The idea for the quantum tunnel drive had come from Dr. Helen Carter, the ship's science officer. She was a small woman with wild gray hair and thick glasses. She spent most of her time in the laboratory, working on equations that made other scientists' heads hurt. Dr. Carter had tried to copy alien faster-than-light technology, but it did not work for humans. Human technology was different. It was rougher, more direct. So instead of trying to bend space-time like the aliens did, she decided to punch holes straight through it. "Captain," called Navigator Park, "we're getting close to the coordinates. Intelligence gave us. I'm detecting multiple alien vessels. They're moving to intercept us." Jake looked at the main screen, which showed a tactical display of the surrounding area. Red dots marked the positions of alien ships. There were at least 12 of them, arranged in a defensive formation. They were sleek and elegant, nothing like the chunky human vessel. "Are they armed?" Jake asked. "Unknown, sir. But they're definitely not happy to see us. They're moving into attack positions." Jake nodded and pressed a button on his chair. "All hands, this is the captain. We're about to make first contact with an alien civilization. Remember, we're not here to start a fight. We're here to introduce ourselves and maybe make some friends. But if they want to dance, we'll dance." Commander Rachel Martinez, the ship's weapons officer, looked up from her station. Everyone called her Red because of her bright red hair. She was tough and smart, with a reputation for being able to hit anything she aimed at. "Captain, our weapons are ready if we need them. But I should warn you, our guns are probably not what the aliens are expecting." Red was right about that. While the aliens used energy weapons and sophisticated targeting systems, the Liberty carried old-fashioned human weapons. There were railguns that fired tungsten slugs at incredible speeds. There were nuclear missiles left over from the old military. And there was Red's favorite weapon, which the crew called the Democracy Dispenser. The Democracy Dispenser was Red's own invention. It fired a cloud of steel ball bearings at nearly the speed of light. It was not accurate, but it covered a wide area and could damage multiple targets at once. Red had painted a small American flag on the side of the weapon. "Sir," Amy called from her station, "I'm receiving a transmission from the alien ships." "They're trying to communicate with us?" "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at an alien face. It was tall and thin, with purple skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and dark, and it wore a military uniform covered in medals and ribbons. "Greetings," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Admiral Cassandra of the Galactic Council. Peacekeeping fleet, you have violated the quarantine of your system and entered restricted space. You must return to Earth immediately." Jake stood up and straightened his uniform. "Well, hello there, Admiral. I'm Captain Jake Sullivan of the United States Space Force. It's nice to finally meet you folks. We've been trying to get your attention for a long time. The alien admiral looked surprised. You have been trying to contact us? Oh yeah, for about 50 years now. We've been sending radio signals, mathematical equations, music, even recipes. We figured you were just being polite and ignoring us. Recipes? Admiral Cassandra looked confused. My grandmother's barbecue sauce recipe? Jake said proudly. It's been in the family for generations. We thought you might like to try it. The alien admiral's expression grew more confused. Captain Sullivan, your species has been quarantined because you are classified as dangerous and violent. Your own broadcasts show constant warfare and destruction. Jake laughed. Ma'am, you've been watching our TV shows and movies. That's entertainment. It's not real life. That's like us judging all aliens based on the boring government broadcasts you send out? Boring? The admiral's forearms crossed in front of her chest. No offense, but your official messages are about as exciting as watching paint dry. We've been trying to send you the fun stuff, music, art, jokes, stories, but you never responded. Behind Jake, Red leaned forward. We even sent you the specifications for fireworks. We thought you might like to see pretty explosions that don't hurt anyone. Your fireworks included detailed instructions for creating explosive devices. Admiral Cassandra said coldly. Well, sure, Jake shrugged. We figured you'd want to know we weren't completely helpless. We also sent you the recipe for chocolate chip cookies. Did you try those? The alien admiral was clearly getting frustrated. Captain Sullivan, you must understand that your species exhibits dangerous levels of aggression. Your historical records show thousands of years of warfare, and thousands of years of art, music, literature, and scientific discovery, Jake countered. You've been looking at our worst moments and ignoring our best ones. We're not perfect, but we're trying to be better. And we're tired of being judged by people who won't even talk to us. Dr. Carter appeared on the bridge, carrying a tablet covered in complex equations. Captain, I've been analyzing their ship designs. Their faster-than-light technology is completely different from ours. They might not understand how we got here. How did you achieve faster-than-light travel? Admiral Cassandra asked. Our model suggested your species was centuries away from such capability, Jake grinned. Same way we do everything else, Admiral. We got tired of waiting for permission and figured it out ourselves. Pete Morrison stepped forward, still carrying his wrench. We tried to copy your space-bending technology, but it didn't work for us. So we decided to punch holes through space instead. It's messier, but it gets the job done. You punch holes through space? The Admiral looked horrified. With style, Pete said proudly. Sometimes you have to hit a problem with a big hammer to make it work. The alien admiral stared at them for a long moment. You are telling me that you developed faster-than-light travel by hitting space with a hammer. Metaphorically speaking, Dr. Carter added, though Pete did use an actual hammer during the construction process. Several hammers, Pete corrected, and a blowtorch, and some very colorful language. Jake could see that the alien admiral was struggling to understand the human approach to problem-solving. Look, Admiral, we know we're not what you expected. We're loud, we're messy, and we like to do things our own way. But we're also honest, loyal, and once we decide to be friends with someone, we're friends for life. We just want to talk, Amy added from her station. We want to learn about the galaxy and maybe share some of our own ideas. We brought gifts. Gifts? Admiral Cassandra looked suspicious. Coffee, chocolate, and a playlist of our best music, Jake said. We also brought a barbecue grill and enough hamburgers to feed your entire crew. Admiral Cassandra stood on the bridge of her flagship, the harmony of spheres, and stared at the human vessel on her main screen. The ship looked like someone had built it from spare parts and held it together with hope and determination. It was ugly, crude, and somehow managed to look dangerous and friendly at the same time. Analysis report, she commanded her tactical officer, Commander Taishkal. A reptilian creature with scales that changed color based on his mood looked up from his instruments. His scales were currently a nervous yellow-green. Admiral, their ship's energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. The power readings are off the charts, but the technology appears to be completely improvised. Improvised? Admiral Cassandra's forearms crossed in front of her chest. What do you mean? It appears they built their faster-than-light drive from spare parts and scrap metal, Taishkal replied. According to our scans, their engine room contains components from at least 12 different technological systems, some of which should not be able to work together. The Admiral's personal aide, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Velthara, drifted closer. Admiral, the humans are still broadcasting. They say they want to invite our crew over for something called a cookout. A cookout? The Admiral had heard many strange things in her long career, but this was new. They promised to provide food and beverages. They also mentioned something called getting to know each other and having a good time. Admiral Cassandra had spent her entire life in the military. She understood tactics, strategy, and the proper protocols for dealing with hostile alien species. But these humans seemed to be treating first contact like a social gathering. "Open a channel," she ordered. The view screen flickered, and Captain Sullivan's face appeared. He was sitting in what looked like a chair made from old car seats and airplane parts. Behind him, other humans moved around casually, laughing and talking like they were at a party instead of a tense first contact situation. "Admiral," Captain Sullivan said with a wave, "good to see you again. We were just discussing whether we should break out the good china for dinner or just use the regular plates." "Captain Sullivan," Admiral Cassandra began, trying to maintain her professional composure, "this is not a social visit. You have violated galactic law by leaving your quarantine zone." "About that," Sullivan said, leaning back in his chair, "we never agreed to be quarantined. You folks just decided to lock us up without asking our opinion. That's not very neighborly." The Admiral felt her primary heart skip a beat. "Your species was classified as too dangerous for contact. Your own broadcasts showed constant warfare and violence." "You've been watching our entertainment shows," Sullivan replied. "That's like us judging all aliens based on your government press releases. We make movies about wars and disasters because they're exciting to watch. But we also make movies about love, friendship, and talking animals." "Talking animals?" Commander Tushkal whispered to the Admiral. "Are the humans experimenting with genetic modification?" "No, no," Sullivan laughed, apparently overhearing. "Cartoons. Animated movies. We make pictures move and give them voices. It's fun." The concept of creating moving pictures for entertainment was completely foreign to most council species. Art was serious business in the galaxy, carefully planned and executed according to strict cultural guidelines. "Captain," Admiral Cassandra said, "your species has a documented history of violence. Wars, environmental destruction, the development of weapons of mass destruction, and jazz music," added Commander Martinez from behind Sullivan. "Don't forget jazz music. And the internet and democracy and pizza." "Pizza?" Velthara floated closer to the Admiral. "Should we be concerned about this pizza weapon?" "It's food," Sullivan explained. "Bread with cheese and toppings. We thought you might like to try some. We brought enough for everyone." The Admiral was beginning to understand why the original survey team had recommended quarantine. These humans seemed to treat everything as a casual social interaction. "Captain, you must understand that your arrival has caused significant alarm throughout the galaxy. The way you travel through space is unlike anything we have seen." "Dr. Carter can explain that better than I can," Sullivan said. "She's the genius who figured out how to make it work." A small woman with wild gray hair appeared on the screen. She wore a lab coat covered in stains and equations written in marker. "Hello, Admiral. I'm Dr. Helen Carter, Chief Science Officer. I understand you're curious about our propulsion system. Your method of faster-than-light travel appears to violate several laws of physics," Admiral Cassandra said. "Oh, it does," Dr. Carter said cheerfully. "We tried to follow the laws of physics, but they were too complicated. So we found a way around them." "You found a way around the laws of physics?" The Admiral's translator was having difficulty with the concept. We don't bend spacetime like you do, Dr. Carter explained. We punch holes through it. It's messier and louder, but it works. Sometimes you have to break a few rules to get things done. Commander Teshkal's scales turned a deep purple, indicating extreme confusion. But the theoretical framework for such technology would require a really big hammer and a lot of patience, interrupted Chief Engineer Morrison, who had appeared next to Dr. Carter. We tried the fancy math approach first, but it didn't work. So we went with the practical approach. The practical approach? Admiral Cassandra was getting a headache. Hit it until it works, Morrison said with a grin. Amazing how often that solves problems. The Admiral's military training had not prepared her for this. She had dealt with aggressive species, peaceful species, and mysterious species. But she had never encountered a species that seemed to solve complex problems by hitting them with hammers. Captain Sullivan, she said, your ship's weapons systems are also unlike anything we have encountered. We tried to keep things simple. Sullivan replied, energy weapons are fancy, but sometimes you need something that goes boom. Commander Martinez can tell you more about that. Red Martinez stepped into view. She was cleaning what looked like a very large gun. Our weapons are pretty straightforward, Admiral. We've got railguns that fire tungsten slugs, nuclear missiles for the really big problems, and my personal favorite, the democracy dispenser. Democracy dispenser? The Admiral was almost afraid to ask. Fires a cloud of steel balls at high speed. It's not very accurate, but it covers a lot of area. Good for dealing with multiple threats at once. You named your weapon after a political system? Velthara asked. We name our weapons after things we like, Red said proudly. Freedom, liberty, justice, democracy. It helps us remember what we're fighting for, the alien crew exchanged glances. Most galactic species had very formal naming conventions for military equipment. The idea of naming weapons after abstract concepts was completely foreign to them. Captain, Admiral Cassandra said, your crew seems to have a very casual approach to military protocol. We're not very big on formality, Sullivan admitted. We prefer to keep things friendly. Speaking of which, we'd still like to invite you over for dinner. We've got steaks, corn on the cob, and apple pie for dessert. You want to feed us? The Admiral was confused again. It's what we do, Sullivan said. When we meet new people, we invite them over for a meal. It's how we get to know each other. But we could be enemies, the Admiral pointed out. You could be, Sullivan agreed. But we prefer to assume you're friends until you prove otherwise. It's worked out pretty well for us so far. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from her station. Captain, I'm detecting more alien ships approaching. Looks like reinforcements. Well, that's good, Sullivan said. We brought enough food for a crowd. Admiral Cassandra felt her secondary heart start beating faster. Captain, those ships are armed warships. They are not coming for dinner. Maybe not, Sullivan said calmly, but the invitation stands. We've got enough hamburgers to feed an army. Hamburgers? Commander Teshkal's scales were now flashing multiple colors rapidly. Ground beef formed into patties and grilled, Dr. Carter explained, usually served on bread with various toppings. It's quite good. The Admiral stared at the screen, trying to process what she was hearing. A species that had been quarantined for 2 centuries had broken free, developed impossible technology, and was now offering to feed her entire fleet. Captain Sullivan, she said slowly, your species is unlike anything we have encountered. We get that a lot, Sullivan replied, but we're hoping that's not necessarily a bad thing. The Admiral looked at her crew, who were all staring at the screen with expressions of confusion and fascination. She had a feeling that first contact with humanity was going to be much more complicated than anyone had expected. Very well, Captain, she said finally. I will beam over with a small delegation. But I warn you, any hostile action will be met with immediate retaliation. Wouldn't dream of it, Sullivan said with a smile. We'll fire up the grill and put on some music. You're going to love this. As the transmission ended, Admiral Cassandra turned to her crew. prepare a diplomatic team, and someone find out what exactly humans consider appropriate dinner conversation. She had a feeling this was going to be a very long day. Admiral Cassandra stepped through the transport beam and onto the human ship. She expected to find a primitive, dirty vessel filled with dangerous weapons and crude technology. Instead, she found herself in a clean hallway decorated with paintings of Earth landscapes and what appeared to be family photographs. The air smelled like cooking food and something the humans called coffee. Music played softly from speakers hidden in the walls. It was not the harsh military environment she had expected. It felt more like someone's home. Captain Sullivan was waiting for her with a smile and an extended hand. "Welcome aboard the Liberty. Admiral, I'm glad you decided to visit." Admiral Cassandra looked at his outstretched hand uncertainly. Her species did not shake hands, they touched foreheads as a greeting. But she had studied human customs during the flight over and knew this was their way of showing friendship. She awkwardly shook his hand with one of her forearms. "Captain Sullivan, this is Commander Tishkal, my tactical officer, and Dr. Velthari, my science advisor." "Great to meet you both," Sullivan said, shaking their hands as well. "Come on, let me show you around. Dinner will be ready in about an hour." As they walked through the ship, Admiral Cassandra was surprised by what she saw. The corridors were wide and comfortable. The crew members they passed were relaxed and friendly. Many of them smiled and waved at the alien visitors. "Your crew seems very informal," Commander Tishkal observed. His scales were a cautious green color. "We don't believe in being stuffy," Sullivan replied. "Life's too short to spend it saluting all the time. Besides, when you're stuck on a ship together for months, you might as well enjoy each other's company." Their first stop was the engine room. Chief Engineer Morrison was waiting for them, covered in his usual layer of grease and oil. He had cleaned up as much as possible, but his uniform still looked like he had been wrestling with machinery. "This is our quantum tunnel drive," Morrison said proudly, pointing to a massive device that filled most of the room. The engine looked like it had been built from spare parts from a dozen different machines. Pipes and cables ran in all directions. Warning signs in multiple languages covered every surface. Dr. Velthari floated closer to examine the engine. As a scientist, she was fascinated by technology, even if it was crude. "This appears to be held together with ... Is that tape?" "Duct tape," Morrison corrected. "The universal problem solver. If you can't fix it with duct tape, you're not using enough duct tape." "But how does it work?" Dr. Velthari asked. "Our faster-than-light drives require precise gravitational field generators and exotic matter containment systems. Ours requires a big power source and a willingness to punch holes." "In reality," Morrison said cheerfully, "Dr. Carter can explain the science, but basically, we decided that if we couldn't go around the laws of physics, we'd go through them." Dr. Carter appeared from behind a control panel, carrying a tablet covered in equations that made Dr. Velthari's brain hurt just looking at them. "The theoretical framework is actually quite elegant," she said. "We create a localized space-time rupture by concentrating enormous amounts of energy into a very small area." "You rupture space-time?" Admiral Cassandra felt faint. "Only temporarily," Dr. Carter assured her. "The ruptures heal themselves within a few seconds, mostly." "Mostly?" Commander Tishkal's scales turned yellow with worry. "There might be some minor side effects," Dr. Carter admitted. "Localized gravitational anomalies, temporal distortions, the occasional small black hole, but nothing dangerous." "You create black holes?" Admiral Cassandra's voice was barely a whisper, very small ones, Morrison said. "And they evaporate almost immediately. It's perfectly safe as long as you don't stick your hand in the wrong place at the wrong time." The alien visitors stared at the engine in horror. Their own faster-than-light technology was carefully designed to avoid any dangerous side effects. The idea of deliberately creating black holes as part of normal operation was terrifying. "Don't worry," Sullivan said, noticing their expressions. "We've only lost 2 crew members to temporal displacement, and they both came back eventually." "Well, mostly? Dr. Velthari asked weakly. Johnson came back 3 days younger than when he left, and Rodriguez now exists in 2 different time streams simultaneously, Dr. Carter explained. But they're both fine. Rodriguez actually likes being in 2 places at once. She says it helps with her workload. Their next stop was the weapons bay, where Commander Martinez was giving a demonstration to a group of alien military observers who had beamed over from other ships. The aliens had expected to see primitive projectile weapons and simple chemical explosives. "This is our standard railgun," Red said, patting a weapon that looked like it had been assembled from tank parts and industrial machinery. "It fires a tungsten slug at about 3% of light speed. Simple, reliable, and it'll put a hole through just about anything." The alien observers looked impressed despite themselves. Their energy weapons were more sophisticated, but they had to admit the human approach was effective. "How do you aim it?" asked Colonel Zenthmer of the Hegemony Defense Force. "Point and shoot," Red replied. "We don't believe in making things complicated. If you want to hit something, you aim at it and pull the trigger. But what about atmospheric interference? Gravitational effects? Target movement calculations?" Colonel Zenthmer was confused. "We factor in the big stuff and ignore the small stuff," Red said. "If you miss, you shoot again. Eventually you'll hit something." She moved to the next weapon, a device that looked like it had been designed by someone who had never seen a proper weapon before. "This is my personal favorite. We call it the Freedom Dispenser." "Freedom Dispenser?" The aliens looked puzzled. "It fires a cloud of steel ball bearings at relativistic speeds," Red explained. "Not very accurate, but it covers a wide area. Good for dealing with multiple targets or when you absolutely, positively need to destroy everything in a general direction." "You named your weapon after a political concept?" Colonel Zenthmer's species did not understand the human tendency to give colorful names to military equipment. "We name our weapons after things we believe in," Red said proudly. "Freedom, liberty, justice, democracy. It reminds us what we're fighting for." The aliens exchanged confused glances. Most galactic military equipment had technical designations based on function and specifications. The idea of naming weapons after abstract ideals was completely foreign. "How do you maintain quality control with such informal naming conventions?" asked General Taishmora of the Council Defense Forces. "If it shoots straight and doesn't explode when you don't want it to, it's a good weapon," Red replied. "Everything else is just paperwork." Their final stop was the medical bay, where Dr. Kevin Murphy was explaining human biology to a group of alien physicians. The medical team had been expecting to find a species similar to others in the galaxy with predictable biological limitations. "So you're telling me that humans can survive in environments that would kill most sapient species?" asked Dr. Zelthura of the Medical Council. "We're pretty tough," Dr. Murphy agreed. He was a tall, thin man with kind eyes and gentle hands. "We evolved on a planet with extreme weather, dangerous animals, and natural disasters. We had to be adaptable to survive. But your atmospheric requirements?" Dr. Zelthura consulted her notes. "Your species needs oxygen to breathe, but you can survive in low-oxygen environments for extended periods. Mountain climbers do it all the time," Dr. Murphy said. "We can also hold our breath for several minutes underwater, survive in freezing temperatures, and function normally in high-radiation environments that would be lethal to most species." "High radiation?" Another alien doctor looked alarmed. "Our planet sits in a radiation belt around our star," Dr. Murphy explained. "We get bombarded with cosmic rays, solar radiation, and background radiation from space. Our bodies adapted to handle it." Dr. Valthari floated closer. "Your psychological profile suggests high levels of aggression and risk-taking behavior." "That's not aggression," Dr. Murphy corrected. "That's determination. When we decide to do something, we don't give up easily. It's gotten us into trouble sometimes, but it's also how we got to the stars." "You consider determination and risk-taking to be positive traits?" Dr. Zelthura asked. "Of course," Dr. Murphy said. "How else would you accomplish anything difficult?" If we only did safe, easy things, we'd still be living in caves. The alien medical team looked at each other nervously. Most galactic species valued caution and careful planning above all else. The human approach to life seemed recklessly dangerous. As the tour concluded, Admiral Cassandra found herself more confused than ever. The humans were definitely not what she had expected. They were friendly, intelligent, and surprisingly sophisticated. But they were also completely unpredictable and apparently willing to take risks that would terrify most rational beings. "Captain Sullivan," she said as they returned to the main corridor, "your species is ... unique." "We prefer special," Sullivan replied with a grin. "Now, how about that dinner? I think you're going to love our barbecue sauce." Admiral Cassandra realized that understanding humans was going to be much more complicated than she had thought. But as the smell of cooking food filled the air and she heard the crew laughing in the distance. 6 months had passed since the Liberty's arrival at the Galactic Council station. The pristine white corridors now had colorful human artwork on the walls. Coffee machines hummed in every break room. Someone had installed what the humans called proper lighting to replace the cold blue glow that had illuminated the station for centuries. Ambassador Jack Patterson walked through the halls of the council building, greeting alien diplomats with handshakes and friendly waves. Jack was a former Marine who had become a diplomat late in life. He was big, loud, and had a laugh that could be heard 3 corridors away. He also had an amazing ability to make friends with anyone who would talk to him for more than 5 minutes. "Morning. Ambassador Zethkari," Jack called out to the blue-skinned diplomat. "How's the family?" Zethkari looked up from his datapad, his breathing device making its usual clicking sounds. "They are well, Ambassador Patterson. My youngest offspring just learned to fly. She keeps crashing into the furniture." "Kids will be kids," Jack laughed. "My grandson just started walking. He's trying to climb everything in the house. Drives his mother crazy." The casual conversation would have been impossible 6 months ago. Galactic diplomacy had always been formal and structured, but the humans had changed that. They treated everyone like potential friends, and somehow it worked. The human embassy was located on level 15 of the station. It was easy to find because of the smell of cooking food and the sound of music that drifted through the ventilation system. The embassy was always busy, filled with alien visitors who came to learn about human culture or just to enjoy a good meal. Today was special. Ambassador Patterson was hosting what he called a state dinner for the full Galactic Council. Every major species in the galaxy would be represented. The menu included foods from Earth and traditional dishes from a dozen different alien worlds. In the embassy kitchen, Chef Maria Santos was preparing the biggest meal of her career. She had trained at the best restaurants on Earth before joining the diplomatic service. Now she was cooking for beings who had never tasted human food before. "How's it going, Maria?" Jack asked as he checked on the preparations. "Good, sir," Maria replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. "The barbecue is almost ready, the corn is cooking, and I just pulled the first batch of apple pie from the oven. The aliens are going to love this. Any special requests?" Ambassador Velthara asked for extra vegetables. Her species doesn't eat meat. And Commander Teshkal wants to try everything but asked if we could make it less spicy. Apparently reptile tongues are more sensitive than human tongues. Jack nodded and moved on to check the main dining hall. The room was huge, with tables arranged in a circle so everyone could see each other. Human and alien staff worked together to set up chairs, plates, and decorations. The atmosphere was festive, like a family gathering rather than a formal diplomatic dinner. Captain Sullivan, now promoted to Admiral, stood near the main entrance greeting guests as they arrived. The Liberty had been joined by 5 more human ships, each one unique and built with the same creative engineering that characterized all human technology. "Admiral Sullivan," Admiral Cassandra said as she entered the dining hall. Over the past 6 months, she had developed a grudging respect for the chaotic humans. "Thank you for the invitation." "Always a pleasure, Admiral," Jake replied with a smile. "Wait until you try Maria's apple pie. It'll change your life." The dining hall slowly filled with representatives from across the galaxy. There were tall, thin hegemonites with their crystal breathing devices, reptilian Vorthons with scales that changed color based on their mood, floating jellyfish-like beings from the outer rim, and dozens of other species all coming together. For a meal, the humans had solved more galactic problems in 6 months than the Council had managed in 6 years. Their approach was simple: identify the problem, find a solution, and implement it immediately. They did not spend months in committee meetings or years writing reports. "Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings," Ambassador Patterson announced, as everyone took their seats, "welcome to our first official state dinner. Before we eat, I'd like to say a few words about what we've accomplished together." He gestured to a display screen that showed a map of local space. 6 months ago, the shipping lanes near the Nebula of Whispers were in chaos. Ships were getting lost, cargo was being delayed, and nobody could agree on new routes. The screen showed the solution: a series of bright yellow beacons that marked safe passage through the nebula. Our engineering teams installed space traffic lights and painted everything bright yellow so nobody could miss them. Problem solved in 2 weeks. Approving murmurs rippled through the audience. The alien diplomats had been amazed by the human ability to find simple solutions to complex problems. The trade dispute between the Vorthon mining colonies and the Hegemony Transport Guild was settled with what we call baseball card diplomacy, Patterson continued. Turns out the Vorthons really like collecting things, and humans have been making collectible cards for over a century. Now they accept rare baseball cards as payment for premium or shipments. Commander Taishkal S. Scales turned a happy blue color. His collection of human baseball cards was now worth a fortune in the Vorthon system. And the border conflict in the Zeta sector was resolved with something we call barbecue diplomacy, Patterson added. Both sides agreed to share territory. In exchange for monthly shipments of Earth barbecue sauce and hot dogs, the examples went on and on. Humans had a talent for finding unexpected solutions that worked for everyone involved. They also had an amazing ability to make friends with anyone willing to try. But most importantly, Patterson continued, we've learned that being different doesn't mean being enemies. We've all got something to offer each other. Humans bring enthusiasm, creativity, and really good food. You folks bring wisdom, experience, and technologies we could never have imagined. As the formal speeches ended and dinner began, the real magic happened. Aliens who had been suspicious of each other for generations found themselves sharing stories and laughing together. The combination of good food and human friendliness was breaking down barriers that had existed for centuries. Admiral Cassandra found herself sitting next to Chief Engineer Morrison, who was explaining human engineering principles while eating corn on the cob. "The secret to good engineering," Pete said between bites, "is knowing when to use the right tool and when to use a bigger hammer. But what if the hammer doesn't work?" Admiral Cassandra asked. "Then you get a bigger hammer," Pete replied seriously. "Or you try hitting it from a different angle? There's always a solution if you're willing to think outside the box." Dr. Carter was at another table, discussing quantum physics with a group of alien scientists. "The key insight," she explained, "was realizing that the universe doesn't care about our theories. If something works, it works even if we don't understand why." "But how do you test theories without proper mathematical frameworks?" asked Dr. Nymphes. "We build it and see what happens," Dr. Carter replied cheerfully. "If it explodes, we know we did something wrong. If it doesn't explode, we keep improving it until it does what we want." The alien scientists looked horrified and fascinated at the same time. Human scientific methods were completely different from their own careful, theoretical approach. As the evening continued, more barriers fell. Alien children who had come with their parents were playing games with human crew members. Diplomatic staff from different species were sharing contact information and making plans for future meetings. Ambassador Patterson stood up to make a final toast. 6 months ago, we were strangers. Tonight, we're neighbors. And tomorrow, we're going to build something amazing together. He raised his glass of beer, and hundreds of alien hands, tentacles, and appendages raised their own drinks in response. To new friends, Patterson said. To new adventures, Admiral Cassandra added. To the understanding that the galaxy is big. Enough for all of us, concluded Ambassador Zethkari. As the party continued late into the night, it became clear that the galaxy had changed forever. The humans had arrived exactly as predicted, late, violent, and uninvited. But they had also brought something the galaxy desperately needed, the belief that any problem could be solved with enough friendship, determination, and willingness to try something new. And if that failed, there was always the option of getting a bigger hammer. The Council records would show that this dinner marked the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization. But the humans would remember it simply as the night they made a lot of new friends over really good barbecue. In the weeks that followed, human ships would spread throughout the galaxy, carrying diplomats, engineers, scientists, and chefs to every corner of known space. They brought with them coffee, chocolate, music, and an infectious optimism that life could always be better. If you were willing to work for it, the galaxy would never be boring again.